Hi, folks. This is IT Rockstars. My name is Scott Miller. This is the podcast where we help IT businesses and managed service providers grow their business. We do that by speaking to sales and marketing professionals in the industry. We also speak to other IT business owners about how they're running their business and to give you some ideas on what you can do in your IT business. On today's show, we have an individual that is doing automation for his clients. So when I say automation, I'm not talking about automated backups, remote monitoring, or management, or antivirus or anything like that. I'm talking about looking at the manual processes within a business and then coding something together, putting something together to automate that task. Really quite interested in what he's doing, and that's his unique selling point. The podcast itself is sponsored by IT Rockstars. We have just launched a new product. You can find it at itrockstars.co.uk. It's specifically to help generate more qualified leads for IT business owners. If you're in an English-speaking country, you can have access to this. So if you go and check out itrockstars.co.uk, you can find out all about that new product we have just developed, and you can get in on the early bird special. Anyway, on today's show, we speak with Tim Harrison. He is working for a company called Computer Consultant Professionals. They're based in Perth, Australia. He's worked for them for 9 years, and we'll just crack on straight into the interview. Then there's maybe other efficiencies that you have in your business. I mean, you're a purely operational side then, so is it someone else that's doing the sales? Is it?
I do sales as well.
Do you?
So there's the director who owns everything. He started maybe 5-10 years before he brought me on board. Okay. Mostly just doing, servicing home users and very small businesses, Soho kind of stuff. He tried a couple of new hires when he first started. So, getting the first people on board, always the hardest thing. I was probably his third attempt at hiring someone decent. And when I came on board and I was just smashing out the work non-stop, he realized, what someone decent can do. And from there, grew out more staff. We got out of the home side, so we don't do any home calls or anything like that anymore. Started moving towards business. And now we hit, small to mid-sized businesses, 10 to 500 staff. We still have a lot of legacy break fix contracts, the whole call us when something breaks kind of thing, and we charge you by the hour, which I absolutely hate those. And we're moving everyone towards what we now call actual managed services.
Okay.
Where we try to provide everything. So we don't like the client having to go to, in Australia, it's iiNet or Telstra or something like that for their internet, and someone else for their phones, and then someone else for their, security, and then someone else because then they've got all these vendors that they have to manage.
Yeah.
And they want to work on their business, not fix all the IT stuff.
Yeah.
So
having it all under one roof.
We are an internet provider. We run our own PBX system. We're not white labeling someone else's. We run our own. We run our own web servers. We supply our own security cameras. Everything we can do, if it beeps and boops and it's a computer thing, we try to supply it. So the buck starts and stops with us. And so our contracts are usually, somewhere between the $2,000 to $15,000 a month kind of range. So.
Okay, cool. So you've already spoke there just a little bit about the business. Is it okay if I kind of just leave this in and we can just, we can go from here on the actual show? Would that be okay, Tim?
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so do you ever get you're saying that you provide it all under one roof? This sort of, I guess it's not out of the box solution, but it's all the services under one roof, like the internet connectivity. Do you guys do VoIP as well?
Yeah. Running our own highly available clustered PBX.
Okay. Do you ever get when you go to a potential customer and they, they're looking at your IT services and everything else that you offer as well? Do you always go with the managed IT support, or do you come from different sort of angles, depending on what the customer is looking for?
So the sales process is around fixing the pain. Nobody calls us in for a quote or a consult because everything's fine. People do not change IT providers very often, and they have to usually screw up monumentally for someone to consider someone else, right?
Yeah.
That, or they're trying to cut costs. Now, if they're trying to cut costs, we're not going to be the right fit for them straight away, and that's an easy client to eliminate. Yeah, we just go, you're trying to find better service for less money. It's not going to happen. Thank you for your time. Let's move on. But otherwise, it's going out and finding out what's causing their major pain and letting them understand that fixing that isn't a problem. Right? As a matter of fact, a lot of people's things are, oh, our servers are crashing, or something technical wise, because that's what they think of when they think of IT. Servers crashing or hardware being slow, or they can never forward their phone system to something else because nobody knows how to use it, that kind of thing. And then I try not to give them the technical answer as to how we're going to fix that, rather than, oh yeah, we're an IT company, we do all that stuff, that's easy. If you sign up with us, that's going to be solved like in the first month.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Very easy for us.
Right.
Where we try to get the value add is in selling that automation, integration, and that painless experience. Okay. Selling the experience more than anything else.
So let's touch then on the automation. Then, it's, as I mentioned before, it's not something that I have that much experience with. I've worked on the technical side for an MSP for a number of years, and before that I was an IT manager for quite a large infrastructure. But I never got into the automation piece in the MSP at the time where I was working. There was a few things that were automated, but not a lot. So what type of things are you automating for your clients?
If they're going to do it more than once, we try to automate it, is the short answer. But for more detail, we try to know our clients in depth. That's one of our big things, is that if the client doesn't want to have a good relationship with us and explain what their business is about, and want to get us involved into like how is their sales process, when an order gets fulfilled, how is that going to the warehouse, or depending on what industry they're in, we want to be involved at that level so that we can look at what they're doing manually and what they're repeating, and what we can do to make a computer or a device or something like that perform that task instead.
Okay. So can you give me an example of something that you've automated for one of your clients?
Yeah. So there's one that we've actually got in the works at the moment. Mm-hmm. They are an online wine seller. Yeah. They're selling wines by the case.
Good online. To work for, yeah.
Yeah. Discount prices from the brand labels, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Now at the moment, taking the website administration out of it, which is a pain with their current system anyway. But someone orders, it at least takes the money automatically, which is nice, but it then sends them an email with the order. Then someone's got to print out that thing, take it over to accounts. They punch it into their accounting platform. Then they say, yes, that's paid. Then someone physically takes that paper down into the warehouse, and someone has to pick it and pack it, and someone has to call the shipping company and get that shipped out to the client. And in the meantime, the client has their customer has no idea of the status of their order until it's at that door, usually. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing is we're integrating all this into their web platform so that when they sell something online, it automatically gets entered into their accounting package. It automatically deducts from their stock. It reflects that stock on their website. It spits out the packing slip into the warehouse where the guys get it automatically on their desk, pull it off the shelf and say, yes, it's ready for shipping. Like, click a button and it sends the consignment off to the shipping company. Okay. So what they're wasting at the moment is a lot of man hours in moving this paperwork around, manual and double entry and all this kind of stuff. And they're struggling to keep up with all the orders they've got. And they don't have any time to improve their business because they're trying to fulfill all their orders.
Yeah.
So bringing us in means we can automate a lot of those manual steps to try to make everything as a single click as possible for them.
That makes a lot of sense. I can see how you drive quite a big efficiency for them there. So what tool are you using to provide that automation? Is it a custom piece of code, or is it, is it multiple tools, or how is that all done?
So for every client, it's different. For them, we're using a web platform. It's all based off WooCommerce and all that kind of stuff, and it's driving PHP in the back end and
Okay.
integrating with services that are running on, hardware to do those calls back to the accounting package and so on and so on and so on. So a lot of stuff is web driven, especially when you're talking about integrating with third-party vendors and the like.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's very much a bespoke thing for each of your clients and potential clients, this automation.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So do you ever, because you provide all of these services, you've got your managed IT support, you've got everything under one roof. Do you ever get kind of like lost in the haze of what you're doing?
No, documentation. Documentation is where it's at.
Okay.
One of the big things we had when we first came in is everything was either in your head or maybe in a notepad document somewhere on a network drive. When I first started working here, that's what it was all about. And as soon as we started trying to grow and expand and push into like running our own cloud PBX and things like that, it became really obvious that we needed the ability to have that information written down and easy to find. And so we utilize, as much as other people probably hate it, but we utilize SharePoint and side of SharePoint to document everything. Okay. But thankfully, SharePoint Online has made that a lot easier these days and much nicer and easier to manage.
Easier to access, yeah. Are you using anything within SharePoint itself, like workflows or alerts or anything like that?
Yeah, so again, things like Microsoft Flows. If you're in the Microsoft Office 365 ecosystem and you're not utilizing Flows, you need to jump into that and take a look at what it can do, because you can have, again, if you want to drive small automation for your clients, like things that are really easy to implement, Microsoft Flows is going to do it. Have it so when the sales guys fill out a sales order or whatever, and if they're trying to do a scan to email kind of thing, you can have it scanned straight into SharePoint and then have that automatically notify someone all through Flows, and it's really easy to set up. Okay. It's like if this and that and all those kinds of services.
Yeah, I've looked at Flows a number of times for integrations. It was actually with Dynamics 365, but it kind of works between. It's almost like, I guess it's almost like where to start with it, because it works between all of the 365 apps almost. And I'm just like, where do I start with it? So yeah, I guess things like scan email to SharePoint. That's quite a cool one. Is there any other little ones like that you use yourself in your business?
Yeah, again, it's got. You really got to take a look at all the actions and hooks that it's got available for you. You can actually program in your own now, which is great as well. Okay. But we can even have it so when someone books us out via Calendly, it drops us a message in Teams. So we're no longer having to deal with email in that sense.
Okay. So you're using Calendly. This is another crazy question I've got for you. How come you're not using the 365 equivalent app? They've got one.
The booking?
Yeah.
Because we are still officially halfway through migrating from Google Apps to Office 365.
Oh, I see.
That's pretty much the reason why.
Oh, I did actually. I saw that on your LinkedIn that you had some Google Apps experience. Where did I see that? Because you create a tool. Sync Fix.
Yeah. So again, in the IT space, it really pays off to really getting deep with programming, especially these days, because that's what drives all our automation. But we found we had a big problem, and everyone had it.
Yeah.
That when you had it too. There you go. When Microsoft released the new version of Office, all of a sudden the Google Apps Sync tool wouldn't work with it, and so people who were using Google Apps and wanted to keep their Outlook, all of a sudden were told, use the web interface. And for a lot of people, that was not an acceptable answer, right?
Yeah.
And it just seemed like it was a move from Microsoft at the time to try and push Google out of the market and say, you have to go with Office 365 if you want to have, that cloud exchange experience with Outlook. But through a bit of experimentation, I discovered that really in the Google Apps tool, it checks for a specific version of Outlook inside the Windows registry to see if it's there before it will permit the install to go through. So the limitation was actually on Google's side.
It's on Google's side, okay. And they just couldn't be
So,
bothered to update their...
well, really, what I don't think they wanted in the end was for people to use the new version of Outlook before they'd had a chance to fully test it.
Okay.
Because they didn't want it so,
I see.
you know, all of a sudden your calendars disappeared because of an error with the new way Outlook works, and it deleted them all, and now Google's to blame for some reason.
Yeah.
So I created a little tool that said, you know, to hell with safety, and basically created a wrapper around it that said, yeah, the version of Office you want installed is installed, even though it's not. And so Google went along, and their actual installer would then go along and install and stick with.
Okay. I remember, yeah, that sounds like a really useful tool to have back then. I mean, I'm sure it's changed now, but I remember when I was dealing with Google Apps at the time. This was probably back in 2000. It was 2011 actually. I had this is a 600 user infrastructure, moving them from on-premise Exchange. Because we were a non-profit, we moved them to Google Apps because the charity pricing was, I think it was almost free, from what I can remember, but there was just that few users within the whole 600 users. There's a few office-based users that wanted to continue using Outlook, and the difficulty I had, it wasn't the newer version of Outlook, but we were using it across Citrix and Microsoft RDS at the time. So their profiles would occasionally just completely drop off, their mail profiles. It just caused a headache. But luckily I got out of that before the 2013 one. So I was lucky there. But Tim, I guess I would have been using your tool back then if I was still working with that client. So do you write other bits of software like that? Is it yourself that writes it, or do you outsource this type of this coding?
No, we write it ourselves. So
okay,
look, to be honest, we are very lucky to have a very, very talented team.
How big is your team?
Sorry?
How big is your team?
Apart from myself, we've got a dispatcher, 4 technicians, and a business owner, and we outsource our accounting and stuff like that.
Okay, all right, okay.
So it's, like I said, it's a fairly small team, but we do a lot with it. I mean, I program in, you know, PHP, JavaScript, C#,
okay.
Python. You know, I do a bunch of PowerShell and Bash scripting, and
okay.
you know, I really dig deep into all those programming languages because each of them have their, you know, strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And have the right place to use them at the right time. So.
Wow. Okay. So you certainly cover a lot then, Tim. So, what do you enjoy about working in the business that you do? What's your biggest sort of thing you enjoy most?
Get to play with new stuff
on a regular basis. Cool. So
I mean, I've been doing IT stuff for many years now, and if I was still doing the same, you know, install Outlook and set up a mail profile or something like that these days, I'd be jumping out windows. But you know, building telephone infrastructure and writing script automation for shipping wine and all that kind of stuff, that's interesting to me. It's a puzzle that needs to be solved. You know?
Yeah. Uh-huh. That's quite cool. So what's the biggest lesson that you've learned in the this 9.5 years at Computer Consultant Professionals? What's your biggest lesson that you've learned so far?
Pick your clients wisely, I would say.
All right.
Not everyone has the right, I'd say, cash flow or bankroll or positioning to be able to do that. You know, some people just need to be able to pick up as many clients as they can, generate that, you know, those billable hours or those endpoint agreements just to make, you know, your ends meet or pay for the staff that you need. But if you manage to find yourself in a situation where you can fire those painful clients, do it.
Have you done that before?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do it quite often. So we get to cherry pick our clients now. Because we're in such that such a nice niche in that people have issues or have technical problems that can be solved with expertise in automation or scripting or programming and all that kind of stuff. Though we're not a programming company, we're a managed service provider.
Yeah.
That no one else can do, or people say it's too hard. So we get to choose which clients we want to work with. You know, if someone comes up and says, I've got a 10-man office and we just want to call you when something breaks, we'll instantly say, not a fit. You know, you might want to look for these other managed service providers. It's not worth our time.
Okay.
So we get the benefit of being able to turn, you know, clients that don't want to work with us at the level that we want to work with them, get to turn them away, which is nice.
It sounds like
we came from the industry of, with break fix, we found a lot of people querying about those 15 minutes of time. The first time they fixed this person's email, it was 15 minutes. The next time it was 30 minutes. Why was it an extra 15 minutes? And then I've got to spend half an hour going through the invoice, explaining why in some scenarios it might take 15 minutes, in some scenarios it might take 20 minutes, and justify for, you know, what might be $30, $40 or something along those lines. And a lot of people will go, you know what, don't worry about it. I'll just credit you back so I don't have to argue.
Yeah.
And that's what they want to do. Yeah, they want to make it so painful that you just give them the money back if they complain. Whereas if we get to move to these, you know, full managed services where we're providing all the Office 365 licenses, all their cloud computing, their phone system, their internet, their DNS filtering, their security, their backups, all their technical support. You know, we come in for quarterly business reviews and consulting and, you know, work with automation and things that are integral to their business. And they just get a one monthly amount, even if it seems to others like quite a lot. They never question that amount because it's agreed to ahead of time.
Yeah.
I just don't have to deal with invoice disputes anymore, which is amazing.
It sounds like a really good position that you're in then, where you're able to choose your clients to that level.
It takes a long time to get there.
So,
yes.
I mean, how are people finding out about you? Is it just word of mouth then, because you do this automation piece and you've been doing it for so long, or how do you get to that position where you can pick your clients?
We have grown organically through word of mouth from the beginning.
All right.
So again, it was starting with home users and people who knew the original owner, you know, the boss Lee.
Yep.
You know, and then we'd have a couple of home users who turned out to be the accountant for a business. And they said, oh, these guys are really good for my home computer. And then we'd get into that business, and then that business would refer us to someone else. We found a lot of good sources for referrals of business coaches and those sorts of people, you know.
Okay. So it's purely referrals then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But if you can partner with, you know, other people who work in developing businesses or improving them, and partner with them, like I said, business coaches, they're a good source for referrals because they will say, you know, what are you doing with your bookkeeping? Oh, I put it into MyOb manually and all that kind of stuff. And they go, well, why aren't you using something like a cloud accounting platform where it all automatically syncs and reminds them and, you know, save yourself that hassle? They go, oh, how can we do that? And they go, oh, well, there's these really cool IT guys. Yeah. You know, they specialize in automation and they send us a referral and so on and so on.
Cool. So that's actually a really good one, because that's one referral source that I'd never tried out before, was actually business coaches. I'd never thought about that. I always went for accountants and sort of legal, like lawyers, solicitors. They were kind of my main referral sources, as well as BNI as well. So this is a really good time, Tim, to speak about the sponsor for today's show. Now, this is the first time that I've run this ad, so you can be the judge of this one, Tim, for me. So the show is sponsored by IT Rockstars. It's a business that I built up over the last 2 years. And the biggest pain point that I had when I was doing IT sales was actually generating qualified leads. So those referrals that Tim's speaking about, can quite easily go in and speak to the business owner about the problems that they had and the technology solutions that we could supply, and then eventually close the lead further down the line. That was the easy bit. The hardest bit was actually generating the referrals. And that's what we did. We did it completely offline at the time. There was no sort of marketing strategy or anything like that. It was a real sort of pain point for me because I wasn't the only sales guy in the business. And we were going through a little bit of a mini recession here in Aberdeen, Scotland, when oil prices crashed. So I was like, there's got to be a better way. And there is, and it's something that was the whole reason for IT Rockstars inception more than anything else. And there's a really big opportunity if you run an IT business today, and that is cybersecurity. Now, a lot of it's been a buzzword for the last 18 months. Tim, I'm sure you know all about it. We'll probably get into that a little bit later in the show. But if you look at your competitors online and what they're doing in regards to marketing their cybersecurity services, it's probably not that much. They're not leading with that. And potentially you're not leading with that either. So IT Rockstars, we've developed, it's a lead generation system for IT businesses, and it's focused on cybersecurity amongst other things. The way the lead generation system works, it's fairly straightforward. It's a 3-step process. The first step is finding your target market, connecting with them on LinkedIn. That's the easy bit. We show you how that's done. The second bit is marketing to that audience that you're building up online and being perceived as the authority online, the local technology authority online. The way you do that is by publishing content on a regular basis. So we give you 4 premium white label articles that you can use on LinkedIn, social media, and your website. We also provide a 60 to 90 second explainer video in which you can add your logo to and share with your LinkedIn connections. And then the final piece of the puzzle is the lead magnet, something that we provide you for your website. People can go to your website and they download it. It's a useful tool that they can use in their business. And it's usually an infographic or PDF, a piece of media like that. There's a 1-month free trial for this. So you can go to itrockstars.co.uk to sign up for that free trial. And you can get access to all of the resources for that month. And you can see if it's a good solution to help market your IT business. So that is today's sponsor. Tim, how do you think, does that make sense to you? What do you think of that sponsor slot? Does that make sense? Give me your honest opinion.
I'll have to check it out. We don't do a lot in the marketing space, but we probably should.
That's the same as all IT companies. It's because they're so busy doing other things like automating.
Yeah, I know.
But the problem I had though was, you can get these referrals, and you've been in business for what, a lot of years, so you've built up that credibility, but not everyone's got that luxury, and you can only go so far with that. You can't, reach out. So that's why this was developed. Cool. So let's talk about the security side of things. It's a really big buzzword here. I am continually being bombarded with email phishing. It's the one that I always like to speak to about IT companies with. What do you do in regards to that? How do you educate your customers? Are you using any systems to help minimize the amount of phishing attacks for your clients?
Yeah, so again, Office 365 is a great platform. Mm-hmm. They've brought in a lot of the anti-phishing products into a lot of the existing SKUs that are out there. And yeah, since we've started deploying Exchange Online Protection and all that kind of stuff, and all those anti-phishing modules that you can get through Microsoft, which I think is, in Australia, it's about $2 to $3 a user, I think. It just shuts all that down. No problem.
Okay.
We've got a lot of interest in people getting education around phishing and those kinds of threats.
Yeah.
Especially lately, because this year in Australia especially, there's new laws that came out called the Mandatory Data Breach Notification Laws, which mean you can no longer suffer a breach of confidential information and stay silent. So up until, I think, mid this year, I think it was, or earlier this year, we could have lost all of our clients' data, their password, credit card details, and all that kind of information, and just said nothing. But you can't do that anymore. If you get caught doing that, you suffer huge fines. The directors are personally liable, and all those things, which is the big threat.
We've had that in UK
until they said personally liable.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, my money, and I went, yeah, your money and your jail time. And I went, oh, geez, I better, do something about protecting my clients' data and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
You're obviously probably having to work with your clients on this new legislation then, not just for your own business, but for your clients as well, and protecting their businesses.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we take our own security insanely
Yeah.
well, you know. Password managers up the wazoo with auditing nonstop with all alerts that get triggered the second one of my staff tries to copy 5 passwords too fast. I get alerts kind of things.
Okay.
But yeah, for clients, it's about ensuring their staff are educated. That's one of the biggest things. Then ensuring that the tools are in place to help protect that data, and then making sure they have an appropriate data breach response plan so that when something does go wrong, they know all the right steps to take, so they make sure that they're compliant, that they're not going to suffer any penalties under those laws unnecessarily. But yeah, staff education is probably one of the biggest preventers for data breach, because I can tell you, every time I've seen a client's site get breached or a potential client's site get breached, it's because they got, oh, it's a post parcel email. Open this file. Oh, it's a zip. That's odd. I'll open the zip. Oh, there's a PDF in there with a JavaScript extension on it. I better double click that. Ah, it didn't seem to do anything. I better email it to Bob and see if he can open it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just spreads because they're forwarding it inside their own department. And then someone realizes what they've done, and either they're good and they speak up, or they're bad and they try to keep it quiet.
Yeah. So you guys running multi-factor authentication for any of your clients?
Everywhere we can.
Okay. Is that just the out-the-box 365, or is it something else off the shelf? Or
yes, so for majority of users, you know, using something like Authy or Office 365 through their Azure SKUs, you can do all the two-factor or push authentication through them.
Mm-hmm.
There are some there are some industry-specific tools that are out there. I'm just trying to think what they're called.
It's all right. If you, it was really just a question more than anything else about.
But there's a really cool one that one of my clients brought to me and said, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this for our, for our authentication package, because we're sick of like logging into Xero, then logging into this other package, then logging into the 27 other websites we use."
Okay.
They now log in. They're now going to be logging into one portal, which requires one two-factor token, and from there they can launch into all those other websites without ever knowing the password to them. So when a staff member gets fired, they just log out their access to the portal, and then all those other logins, they never knew them. So
cool. That sounds like quite a cool tool.
Yeah.
You have to let me know the name of it once you remember. Yeah. All right, Tim. Is there any other things you want to cover here today?
Oh, mate, I could cover anything and everything. I've started from the smallest down from pulling computers apart and sticking them back together again to, as I said, building whole PBX systems.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I'm probably focusing on at the moment is that phone system. Because a lot of people these days are going, my phone, I pick it up and answer it, and that's its use. Whereas I say, why not have it when you send out an advertising campaign, you advertise a special number, all that gets logged through the phone system, you get all those statistics about who's going through and following up on those campaigns. If someone doesn't get through to someone, we can have the system force a dial back, and we can have that integrate with your marketing platform, for example. So if you've got a customer with their contact details in your marketing platform, when they call in, it can make sure that there's a note on their account saying, hey, they called in today. And then you can have follow-ups for anyone who's been stagnant for 3 months. If they haven't called you and they haven't emailed you in 3 months, they should be flagged for follow-up, and keeping all those links fresh. You can have your phone system tie into all that, which is no one thinks of. So
that sounds pretty cool. That's quite a cool strategy. So goals for 2019 then, Tim, as this is good. This is the last review of 2018. So top of the year here. What are your business goals for 2019?
Automation. We drive that very heavily, and we always say that if we ever stop doing the MSP gig ourselves, we'll do the automation for other MSPs.
Cool.
We know there's other companies out there that will, do the whole kickstart. So if you're using LabTech Automate or ConnectWise Automate,
Yeah.
or ConnectWise Manage, or all those kinds of things. I think the MSP webinar guy mentioned this as well. When you get it, it's an empty box. Yeah, they give you those, maybe some starter scripts that might check if their antivirus is valid or something along those lines. But otherwise, it doesn't really do much. Through our years and years and years of using, ConnectWise Automate, we've got a full-on package of scripts that go through and check for all the standard problems that you might fix from day to day. All the patch management is all correct and working, and so on and so on. We ban all those bad update KBs and
There's a
we
new one every month at the moment.
Yeah. So again, we even have our system so it sends those updates out in waves. It hits us first. So if there's a huge problem, we suffer it, and then we have our first wave clients that then suffer it next, and then it slowly pushes out through the system. So at the very least, we're not hitting 2,000 endpoints with a bad update in one day, which is the worst thing you can do. Turn a bad day into a really, really bad day.
Cool. Any personal goals for 2019?
Yeah, I mean, for ourselves, it's a lot of internal work, is what I'm going to say. Is right now, as you said, we've got a lot of these systems, right? That cloud phone system, that web servers, and backup servers, and all these kind of systems that are separate, and they kind of talk to each other at the moment, but not at the degree that we want it to. So we do have a couple of struggles at the moment where say someone exceeds their backup quota, their agreement doesn't get updated unless someone checks it, and that's a manual check. And for us who talk about automation, manual check that system is really bad. So we're working on a platform now that's going to be all centered around the ConnectWise range of products and third-party vendors to pull all that and make it all work together. So if you've got licenses in Office 365, it's going to make sure that's synced down to ConnectWise and bills them correctly. When a client makes a call on their phone, all those call data records come through to ConnectWise and sync correctly. And with every product we have and we sell, we want that so it synchronizes automatically, so there's no more manual checks.
That sounds like a huge.
2019 is going to be the year of housekeeping for us.
Sounds like a big piece of work. I think we'll leave it there then, Tim. Actually, this is the last question I've got for you. Now, this is when I was doing some research on you before we connected today. I was on, it's the Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine, and I typed your website address into the Internet Archive. Let me share my screen here.
This is going to be embarrassing.
Who is this guy? Who's this guy?
He is the totally not infringing random green guy.
Oh, you didn't even have a name for him.
Yeah, well, that would be some form of infringement. I think.
I see. Okay. He was on there for a while. He was on there for a while, though. I quite liked, actually, if I share this again. Let me go into it again. I kind of liked how you had like a direct link into each of your texts. You're obviously here in the middle.
So again, when we first started, we had a static IP. This is Australia, don't forget. So we're talking very, very bad internet speeds. And we just used reverse VNC connections. So we just had a port forwarded to each machine with static IP. That's how simple it was. And we stuck with that website for a long time. It did nothing for us.
It's cool.
And we're still working on our website today.
I love it. It's simple. It's clean. And you can connect directly with the text. The archive still got the exe files for these. I downloaded one and tried to connect with Lee, but it came up with an error.
Our VNC repeaters doesn't exist anymore.
It disappeared somewhere. All right. That's great, Tim. It was really nice to meet you. We'll call it a day. Thanks all for listening to IT Rockstars, the podcast here where we help IT business owners grow their business. As I mentioned, today's podcast was sponsored by IT Rockstars. If you're looking to market your IT business and generate more qualified leads, check out the 1-month free trial at itrockstars.co.uk, and you get access to all of the premium content. On next week's show, we've got a different type of show. I'm not going to go into it in here, but if you want to find out what's on next week's show, you're going to have to subscribe. You can do that on YouTube. You can do that on your podcast app, wherever you might be. But until next time, it's been a good interview, I think, Tim. And I'll see you guys later. Thanks, folks. Bye.